our meeting to order. Will you please join me for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please, Sienna.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Stanfield.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Trent. Here. Mayor Long.
Here. Thank you, Sienna. Our first item is a presentation of a new treatment plant operator. Come on up.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I'm pleased to introduce the newest member of the Wastewater Treatment Plant Division, Operator in Training, Samuel Berry. Sam actually applied to 2 jobs at the city before he was hired, one in the Streets Division and this one, so I guess it turns out that he'd rather work with poop. Sam comes from the San Diego area originally. He moved to Humboldt in 2018 because he loves the redwoods and the environment here. He worked as an auto mechanic in Eureka for a while, went back to Southern California, only to return to Humboldt for good this year. He now lives in Rio Del with his wife and 2 fur babies, a black dog and a black cat. He likes to work on his house, restore old vehicles, including 2 1963 Ford trucks, hike and bike, and he likes outdoor sports. He also rides a motorcycle to work. Sam comes with extensive experience working on super yachts at a shipping yard, which is very appropriate for where he's at now. In fact, we would like to think of the wastewater treatment plant as a super yacht. Maybe call it the SSPU. Anyway, Sam has already utilized this marine maintenance experience, dismantling, grinding, and soon to be recoating submerged metal in one of our plant clarifiers. We're very fortunate to have him on board. I look forward to working with Sam and seeing him develop as a treatment plant operator. Thank you. Sam, would you like to say a couple words?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be a part of Fortuna and to have a long, prosperous career here, and I'm part of a great team. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Chris, I think you should just... Chris should be in charge of introducing all new employees. That should just be on the list. That's what you should do. Thank you for that. All right, now is the time for oral comments from the public. If anyone would like to address the council on anything not on our agenda tonight, please come up to the podium. All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. We have 11 items on our consent calendar, including city council minutes, admin department monthly reports from community development, finance, parks and rec, police, public works, River Lodge, the report of disbursements for the month, and an authorization for the city manager to continue teleconference public meeting pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, and destruction authorization for selected finance department files, resolution 2022-26. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items? Seeing none.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that moves us right on into our discussion item regarding PG&E's inability to provide services to the Eel River Valley. Merritt, we have a staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Law and Council. So really, this is an item that I put on the agenda following a meeting with PG&E last week that resulted from us finding out that PG&E has the inability to connect the number of services that we anticipate having in Fortuna and, in fact, the southern part of Humboldt County in the near future. We recently became aware of the inability of PG&E to provide new service, first with our Tesla battery backups that we installed at the Kenmar booster pump station. Those were installed to provide auxiliary power to that pump station in event of a power failure. And we, in corresponding with PG&E, they indicated that there was some issues with the substation that wouldn't allow them to provide power. So they were working on that and working on us getting a timeline. And then one of the other things that we became aware of is that one of the developers on the mill site was unable to increase the size of their service as requested. And so at the same time, we were reviewing a proposed package distribution facility on the mill site that required a 3,000 amp service. So we were very curious. There was a lot of money and time and energy going into that package distribution center, and they were working on their environmental document. And so we were curious. PG&E had issued them a will serve letter for that development. And because the other adjacent development couldn't get an increase in power, we were curious if they would actually be able to see power at that proposed distribution facility. So we requested a meeting with PG&E. We were very concerned about the long-term prospects of development at the mill site. And so we finally had a meeting with PG&E on Tuesday of last week. And we were a little alarmed at the size of the problem. Really, essentially what PG&E conveyed to us is that there's severe limitations with transmission and distribution into the Eel River Valley and southern Humboldt. And there's an anticipated cost of $900 million and a timeline of up to 10 years to be able to provide power for new commercial projects. There's a number of applications that are in, and PG&E has indicated that they do have the ability to serve a number of the applications that have been already submitted, but it's questionable whether future projects that are coming up will be able to be served. And the central issue seems to be that too much current is currently passing through the transmission lines, and really in bringing on new service connections will exacerbate the problem. So that's really what came up to us. PG&E estimated that once funding is available, it would take between 2 to 5 years to make the necessary upgrades needed to the substations, and at least 7 to 10 years to make the needed upgrade to the transmission lines. One of our concerns that we conveyed to PG&E is that they continue to issue will serve letters to potential developers. That really, in the past, those developers have really banked on those letters to understand that, okay, I have power that can come to the site, but what's not being talked about is that it could take 7 to 10 years, and that timeline is way too long for most developers to buy property and develop a project. So essentially what that means is a number of developments that are proposed in the city, and there's a few pretty significant ones right now, really could put the brakes on those in the very near future. One good example is proposed development on the mill site. The city's been working on a specific plan in an effort to make the site attractive to developers. There was one interested party that was working on a package distribution facility. Although that project got paused, there's now a new developer who wants to buy the site and develop it. But again, if we tell them, and we have, that there's uncertainty with the power and it could be 10 years, then the chances are that they won't want to move forward with that site. So a lot of effort going into that site could be stalled. Similarly, the property across from Strong Street Plaza, the city's made a pretty significant effort in hiring consultants to attract retail businesses. That site is one that's been identified as ready to go with but now the only obstacle to that is power. And so it's questionable whether development at that site would be able to proceed. So that's not, it's not just those two developments. There's a lot of state mandates that are coming through, whether it be housing. We recently approved approximately 70 unit multifamily housing on Smith Lane. We have some pre-approved subdivisions that have already been approved in finals, like the Fitzy subdivision off of Redwood Way. So PG&E has estimated that they will continue to be able to provide residential hookups, but it's uncertain how many and what about for larger projects. And we just don't have an answer for that one right now. So we're concerned about the ability to provide housing. We've also been participating with the county with the development of the Climate Action Plan. A lot of the Climate Action Plan is really predicated on conversion of transportation and housing to all electric that can be supplied from renewable sources and not create greenhouse gases. So so if we're relying on additional hookups and we have to have new electric charging stations and those can't be connected to the grid, then how are we going to power those conversions to electricity in the future? So that really brings that into question as well. We're also concerned about some of the facilities like the senior center that's under construction and built but not connected yet, the police facility that we're getting ready to put out to bid. And then another significant project is the city's wastewater treatment plant project. The proposed alternative that we've already completed an environmental document for would involve pumping and ultraviolet disinfection, which are pretty high power demand activities. So we're concerned that we might not have the ability to comply with some of the state water resources control board requirements with our wastewater treatment plant. If the delay is really 10 years, we'll be outside of the timelines that are allowable. And so there's a real concern that businesses that want to locate in Fortuna, might prefer the cities, the northern part of Humboldt, Arcata, and Eureka, and that the revenues in the city could stagnate as a result of little or no growth. So it's a very serious issue. The more we think about it and learn about it, the more we're concerned. From a city level, we've done our best to communicate with developers. We've called many of the developers who have proposed projects and let them know about the uncertainty and to speed up their applications and try to get their applications in as quickly as possible. We've asked PG&E to communicate the uncertainty with new developers rather than just issuing a will-serve letter. Could you please let them know that there is uncertainty so they don't continue to spend large amounts of money on a project that may not be able to be powered for some time? We submitted an informal complaint email to the California Public Utilities Commission, and we actually spoke to our representative, and really what they described was a regular process by which PG&E identifies their improvements with their proposed rate plan, and then the following year, those improvements get made. But it doesn't seem like that normal process for identifying improvements and seeking to increase rates will really cover the large amount of work that needs to be done. Again, $900 million is not a small amount, and 10 years is a long time, and really what we communicated to them that this is just not acceptable to the city. And we also forwarded questions to them about trying to clarify what PG&E's responsibility is. PG&E is a public utility. It's overseen by the California Public Utilities Commission. Is that an acceptable amount of time for a utility to not be able to provide power for the natural growth of a community? To the city and to staff, we feel like absolutely it's completely unacceptable. It might as well be a building moratorium on commercial businesses, and it'll just slam the brakes on growth in the city. So we're hoping that we can find an alternative. We've had some, on the positive side, we've had some great advocacy. Second District Supervisor Bushnell is here, and I think since we started talking about this last week, she's met with just about every state elected official over our area, and she's been very active in talking with PG&E and advocating. So she set up a meeting with McGuire, which we'll have on Wednesday, and we'll be able to hear more. I talked with a representative from Assemblymember Wood's office today. They're also very anxious to figure out some solutions. And so I think we have some pretty good momentum building and just the communication from the community that this is unacceptable. Again, it's not just the city of Fortuna, the city of Rio Dell. It's my understanding that they have projects that are underway or in progress that it's uncertain whether they'll be able to receive power. They've also been communicating with the CPUC, and I know there's projects in southern Humboldt that are also have questionable power. So this is everybody south of Eureka, essentially. And the reason that it doesn't include the whole county is they have another high voltage transmission line that comes in and serves that portion of the county, but the transmission lines are undersized from, I think, the power plant south. So a pretty big issue, one we're really concerned about, and we're going to continue to pursue. I'm really not looking for any action. I just want, it seemed like a significant enough item that I really wanted the council to have a chance to discuss it. I wanted the public to have a chance to be able to understand what the situation is, and everybody to really push to find a solution quicker than what is being proposed. Things that we'll consider doing after this council meeting, if there's not other direction from staff, is we'll look at, again, determining what the responsibility is of PG&E to be able to provide those services and writing a formal complaint. We'll continue to advocate with our state elected officials to find alternatives, and I really hope that there's something that can be done in a shorter period of time to connect the city of Fortuna and the rest of southern Humboldt. So it seems like it's going to be a work in progress, and with that, I'll turn it over to the council if you have questions. I will point out that Allison Talbot is here. She's the she's a government liaison with PG&E, and Allison's not responsible for any of the technical aspects, but she has been helpful in getting us in touch with the right people and finding out the details of the situation and helping us to get information when we need it. So I'm pleased that Allison's here. I don't think she can speak to any technical issues, but when it comes to communication or outreach, she might be able to fill in some more there. But I know that PG&E is planning on making a formal presentation to the Board of Supervisors sometime in early November, so that's coming up. And with that, I know Supervisor Bushnell may want to say a few words, I'm not sure, but with that, I'll turn it over to the council for questions or comments or, other ideas for how we proceed from here.
All right, since we do have Michelle and Allison in the audience, we'll go ahead and open public comment. Do you want to fill us in on what you've been able to do, Michelle or Allison, either one of you? Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, I'm Allison Talbot, your local government relations representative for PG&E. I apologize that I'm not able to provide you a formal presentation this evening, but respectfully would ask that perhaps you invite myself and my colleagues back in November to provide detailed information for the city of Fortuna. I feel like that is when I can bring subject matter experts who will have data and facts, and would hate to go on the record and say the wrong thing. It is an extremely complicated topic, and I don't think I should be your subject matter expert this evening. But I appreciate your kind smiles. I realize how serious this is.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to assure you that I'm here for this community and the rest of my district, that, and I understand the direness of what the presentation that Merritt just gave you. I am working very hard on it and take it very seriously. I can answer any questions if you have some. I'm happy to do so. This came about 3 weeks ago. I had a meeting with PG&E. I asked them to reach out to Fortuna Riedel before I brought it forward. Respectfully, you guys needed the information and not to hear it in the papers. And since then, I have reached out to Senator McGuire and Wood, and I have a meeting. We have a meeting Wednesday. Merritt painted a better picture than what I think it is. I don't think it's good. I don't know that residential will be able to be hooked up either. It's very dire. It's very dire. And if you have questions, I know it's a public comment. I don't know if we can do that. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer what I know.
Basically, you can just fill us in, maybe what the outcome of the meetings with either McGuire or Woods were, or even PG&E. Did you actually get any information other than what Merritt shared with us?
So Senator McGuire didn't know, which is not great, and I hate to say that in front of Allison, but he didn't know when I called him, and so he since then has reached out to PG&E, and we do have a meeting this Wednesday with PG&E higher-ups, and I've asked that the council be involved, or Merritt be involved, and my director of planning and building, and Riedel, to hopefully get some answers. Merritt's correct. It's a $900 million, it's $1 billion fix, and I think 10 years is a time for decision making, not a time for a fixture, unless we can come up with some more, some solutions. I'm happy to work with PG&E, but ultimately, they provide power, and they need to do so for our. This is my entire district. And Fortuna has a little bit of power, Riedel has less power, Southern Humboldt has no power available to them, and that's how I received it from PG&E. And I have a hospital that has to go in Garberville, and it has to be powered. It's the only hospital within 100 miles of Willits to Fortuna. So, it's, Merritt's absolutely right. There's no growth for any economic development in either town or for Southern Humboldt. And it's not acceptable. 10 years, 7 years is not acceptable. And that's the message that I intend to convey on Wednesday. And we'll go farther than that if we have to, but hopefully we can get some solutions that happen right away.
Well, I liked Senator McGuire's response to Lost Coast Outpost. I did email him and Woods, and he didn't respond, which is not like him. Assemblymember Woods did respond, so I think we're all working towards the same thing. It's just going to be a matter of how far we have to go before we can get something done.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm sure that Merritt will report to you after the meeting on Wednesday, but in the meantime, if any of you or the community has any questions, please don't hesitate.
All right, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Michelle, I have one more question. This is coming to the Board of Supervisors on Wednesday?
No, Wednesday is the meeting with McGuire. So we were going to have, I asked PG&E 3 weeks ago to please present to my board. Rex and I were in the meeting with PG&E, so we're Brown Act now, and I can't discuss it with my board members. And so it needs to come as a presentation. And we originally asked for the end of October. I think the hope that we pushed it out 1 week to the first week in November is that PG&E will come prepared with answers. Is the information that I'm receiving, that they will come with solutions, hopefully some solutions, and in that presentation can give us some solid information. And so I am okay waiting that week if we can get a good outcome from that.
Can
So
you
the-
let us know when that meeting is?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all you're doing.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else from the public wish to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment and come back to the council. I mean, there's not really
Not much we can
a
say.
I'm just-
lot to
I got a
discuss. I mean, it's
Couple
like-
things that I wanted
Go
to
ahead.
bring up, because we've had a private utility acting as a public utility that essentially imposed an economic and commercial moratorium. Residential, we have numbers that the state wants us to meet for our regional housing needs analysis, and we can't do that because we can't provide electricity at this time, be sure that they're gonna have it to their houses. And so that, you put it good when you said it's gonna stagnate our revenues and our local economy. And, you know, it's gonna, Jeremy knows it's gonna shrink the housing supply quite a bit because you won't have new houses to turn over. So that takes another arm of the economy out of the equation, which drops revenues more. And it's not something that we can do for 7 years. We won't, I mean, we will be a shell of what we are now maybe at that time.
Well, and it's
So-
not just gonna stagnate. If construction doesn't happen, it's gonna drop rapidly.
Yeah,
Construction sales tax that's generated and the jobs that are generated is huge.
Yeah.
And if that goes away, we're in a lot of trouble,
yeah.
so.
If I could say one more thing, I apologize. One of the big issues also is our climate action plan that's mandated by the governor has to be in place. Currently, we have set it up to electrify Humboldt County in every aspect. And given the information that we were given, that myself and Director Ford was given 3 weeks ago, there isn't a pathway forward for that. And so our climate action plan now that we've been working with the cities, all the cities on, is void for this area from Fortuna to the southern Humboldt, east and west. So, Director Ford does not know what to do because we have to do it. And so all of what you guys just said, plus trying to accommodate the governor's climate action plan is not very comfortable right now.
Well, the governor's gonna have to come on board. If he can't give us
Yeah,
power, we can't do what he's
The
telling us to do.
governor and the
So
legislature.
they're just gonna have to open their eyes and see
Well,
that it's
that's,
not gonna happen.
and that's running it up the chain is the intent to get it there.
Right.
So thank you, and I apologize for interrupting.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for being here.
And I think about the people that fundraised down in southern Humboldt for that hospital. Because that's not built with, it's built on sweat equity and fundraising and scrabbling for grants. And they worked hard and they got to the point where they could start moving forward. And now it's being yanked out from underneath them. And our senior center right here, Jeremy knows about that. Again, that's all done by fundraising with local people, the senior community pitching in and fundraising, and I liken it to bake sailing, and now it's going to stop again. They could have gotten it to a point where they could make it watertight and start utilizing the interior of it while they waited for the rest of the money to finish the interior, but now they got no lights or power for that. And one thing I would say is that has nothing to do with our local men and women that are service reps, our
Right.
customer rep. This is not a decision made at their level. This comes from San Francisco. And their inability to forecast and plan ahead and see the things that we all do every year as we look forward to what our capital improvement projects are going to be, what water and utilities we need, what our housing and road needs are, and we plan that out. And there's a layer that is completely disconnected from that, and that's unacceptable. And I don't know what we can do about it, but I'm not done. I'm just getting started. And I can remember 2 or 3 years ago, somebody, actually further back than that, was getting emails about PG&E and some alternative things, and I'm gonna start looking at that and see what's possible again. Because we can't live like this, with this uncertainty hanging over all our heads as we try to go about delivering, as our mission is to be worthy of the public trust by providing timely, efficient, dependable, well-planned services. And that should go for every service provider from here all the way up through the state and including PG&E. So that's all I have to say for now.
PG&E also has to realize that something like this could bankrupt our city. I mean, if we lose income for 10 years and our expenses still go up and we're losing jobs and more tax money, so we have one that's going like this and one that's going like way down here. I mean, that's bad for the city, and it could also cause lives, because if there's no hospital in Southern Humboldt, you know, some people aren't going to make it. Yeah, so this is serious. So they need to really understand how serious this really is.
I think we can definitely convey that. I just don't know what the answers are going to be. But yeah, the hospital is a huge concern.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, you can have generators out there.
They can't hook up if they don't have power. They can have alternative energy, but they cannot even open doors without being on grid.
And
Without being on the grid? Is that what you said?
Yeah, they can't, they have to have electricity. Oh, okay.
So I have 2 questions, if I may. One of your bullet points says PG&E is not currently passing as much current through the transmission lines as they used to. And is there any leverage there?
Again, I'm not an expert there, but what was conveyed actually to our public works director was that, you know, in the meeting with PG&E, you know, putting more power through those lines at a higher voltage creates more heat in the lines and can overload the transformer. And I think that's one of the causes that led to fires in other parts of the state. So I think one of their concerns is not overloading those lines. So perhaps, you know, and I don't know for sure, but that might be part of the issue, is that they don't want to push these transmission lines beyond what their capacity is, because it will generate heat or create sparks or by overloading transformers. So I think that's a concern, and, you know, that's a legitimate concern, you know, given the loss of property and life that's happened. So I don't know how much of the picture I don't know how much that's responsible for creating this shortfall, but it was conveyed to us that's part of the issue.
And then regarding the mill site, I mean, the mill ran on electricity. Isn't there already 10,000 kW or whatever
Yeah.
sitting there?
You know, I asked that same question. I said, wait, we had a functioning mill. How come we can't, you know, replace that? But essentially what the limitation is the line coming from Eureka is not large enough. So it's supplying, there's more connections from Rio Dell all the way south to Southern Humboldt. So that power that was being used for a mill is now being used for other things. So it's not that we don't have the power, it just can't get to this part of the county. The lines need to be increased in size and the substations need to be upgraded, is what my understanding is.
Okay.
You know, it's just, the most disappointing part is, you know, aside from the critical facilities, the hospital in Southern Humboldt, you know, if we need to upgrade our wastewater treatment plant, some of the other projects that are happening, housing, you know, it's just, on so many levels, it just can't stand. That timeline cannot stand. You know, we've got to find a solution to it. The effort, we're just right on the cusp of having a developer purchase and market the whole mill site. We're right on the cusp of expanding the Strong Street Plaza. You know, the last 2 years have been a major push, seeking grant funds, and literally those could disappear overnight. because of this, and it's, you know, a massive effort for the city, that one that we're very close to kind of seeing a couple large areas develop and redevelop, and, you know, where do we go from here if, you know, there's no point in really continuing our marketing campaign to attract retail. There's no point of, you know, we could do our planning for the mill site, but it'll be a wonderful plan that sits on the shelf for who knows how long. So I just don't think we can accept this as an answer. You know, if we can put higher capacity lines in initially, let's get as many people served as possible. You know, does the whole thing have to be done, or can it be done incrementally? You know, is there a way that we can get those, you know, get the shorter lines in that serve the most people and get those critical facilities powered like the hospital? You know, I just think there's got to be solutions. So, you know, I think we have a good team that is attracting the attention we need, but I think ultimately, you know, this is a Public Utilities Commission issue. You know, the governor appoints the commissioners for the Public Utility Commission, and this is an area where we really need to hold those appointees and the governor and PG&E accountable. And so we have to insist on this, and it's a new area for me. And again, it's absorbed a lot of time since, you know, we were briefed by PG&E last week. You know, we've been waiting for that meeting for months, but I'm glad at least we know what the scale of the problem is, and I don't know what the solution is going to be yet, but I'm glad that we're working as a team with our electeds, you know, at the county and state level to figure it out. So we're going to need the public to voice their concern, and the council, and I think it's going to take everybody saying, hey, this is unacceptable, we need to find a solution, because it's a huge problem. $1 billion is a big number for this county.
And I think we need to send our letter to the Public Utilities Commission. We can be a signatory to the county-wide letter or a Eel River Valley-wide letter, but we need to send our letter. And we need to send a letter to the governor's office, and we need to ask him to make sure that the California Public Utilities Commission advocates for the public, not just the utilities. So there's been a disconnect someplace, and it needs to be addressed. He's the one that appoints the members of the Public Utilities Commission, so we can bypass the legislature's being addressed. We can go to him and address the Public Utilities Commission issue.
Yeah, certainly we're going to take every approach that we can to get the attention that this needs. So from the governor to the Public Utilities Commission, all of our electeds, and PG&E, so.
Did I understand you correctly in your presentation that this was something that you discovered on your own? It wasn't brought to your attention by the public or by the PG&E?
No, so the first indication we had of this again was we had a grant, a self-generation incentive program grant, and so we purchased batteries for the wastewater treatment plant, the corrosion control facility, and our Kenmar booster pump station. And so the first indication that we had, and we don't have our auxiliary batteries connected right now because we're waiting for PG&E at the Kenmar booster pump station. My understanding from talking with our public works director, who's been in discussions with PG&E, is that limitation is being caused by a substation not being able to, you know, a needed upgrade to the substation. And so I think it's between 18 months and 2 years that we're going to have to wait to have those batteries hooked up. But they're sitting there ready to go and are non-functional.
Were those grant-funded batteries, or?
They were grant-funded batteries, yeah.
And
so
the install was also?
And the install was included in that, yeah. We have the batteries that still need to be hooked up, which may not be connected at the corrosion control facility on Dinsmore Drive too, and there's a portion of site work that the city had to pay for that. So I don't believe that we've, you know, that portion of the project is complete yet either, so I don't know the status of that one. But, you know, that was our first indication, and again, we're doing the review of the planning documents that were submitted for the proposed package distribution facility at the mill site. And then we heard of the other building just adjacent to the mill site that they couldn't get the increase in power that they wanted there. So we started to ask those questions, and we've been waiting for a meeting probably for a couple of months, something like that.
Yeah.
So I think, and you know, I know Rio Dell was aware of this in March, so I think all of us are on a pretty similar, the county, the city of Rio Dell, city of Fortuna, we've all been on a similar timeline, but we really haven't been talking amongst ourselves until last week.
Wow, so that's pretty frustrating that the service provider didn't even let us know of a shortage until we stumbled on it on our own.
Yeah, if we didn't hear from contractors who were being told they got the last connection or they couldn't be connected, we might not know this was happening. And again, the engineer for the package distribution facility said, hey, we got a will serve letter, we're good to go, we're gonna continue with our project. But what they did not know is that they wouldn't have gotten power even if they completed that project.
So PG&E is
Oh
still
my.
issuing will serve letters, knowing.
How is that okay?
Knowing that they can't do it.
Well,
Yeah.
because they have a
It's not
responsibility,
okay.
as a utility, they have a responsibility to serve, but given a reasonable amount of time and funding to provide that service. So the question is, what is a reasonable amount of time?
Yeah.
And what, 10 years, certainly not a reasonable amount of time in anybody's book that I know. And so I think that's really the question I want to answer is, what is the requirement for PG&E to be able to provide the service? They have the privilege of being a public utility and having a captive audience, but then when they're not adequately planning for their facilities and they're going to leave all of their customers hanging with no ability to connect, how is that an acceptable position to be in, as a company that's granted, a public utility status? And, what is a PUC's role in overseeing that and ensuring that we have a reliable power supply in it that can be provided to new development in a timely manner? Just as as a comparison, when we look at our wastewater treatment plant upgrade projects, we look at our general plan, we looked at the planned growth, the number of new connections, we make a forecast, and then we size our treatment plant to be able to accommodate that new growth. I'm not sure why that didn't happen with an electrical utility like it would a water utility or a sewer utility. We certainly take that responsibility very serious. I think as council, I think I'd be looking for a new job right now if I told you that we couldn't connect customers to water or sewer. It's the exact same situation, but on a larger scale.
I mean, that would bankrupt a one-man show that was a contractor building a spec house. If he couldn't have power to his property and just sit there and mold and rot for years, I mean, it's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, so we don't know that, again, maybe Supervisor Bushnell knows more about the residential connections and what was conveyed to us in the meeting, that there's pockets of capacity. Residential loads could probably be managed with some of the larger commercial loads, and there will be some capacity for more residential connections. But I don't know the status. What about, our housing numbers that we're trying to meet? What about, we recently approved, a design review for a multifamily project on Smith Lane, or what about the houses that haven't been built off Redwood Way? Like, it's very concerning. Those are both targeted for senior housing, high demand, so.
So we need to notify the people that control arena numbers too?
Well, that's a question. I mean, those come from the state level, so, housing numbers, again, climate action plan, all of those state level policies that have translated down into mandates for the city,
We'll be
we're gonna have a
fined in
really tough time.
bankruptcy.
Somehow I doubt that the Regional Water Quality Control Board will say, hey, if you can't, put new pumps in, we're gonna excuse you from your requirements to upgrade your treatment plant. I just don't see that happening. So we're gonna be in between a rock and a hard place, trying to figure out how we get power, how do we,
Yeah.
Get these
Currently, we
facilities
need
up and
to
going.
build and have ready for occupancy by 2027, 199 units.
That are all electric.
That are all gonna have 200+ amp panels because of the extra utility demand, plus the ability to have an EV charger.
Well, and just thinking about our police facility, our treatment plant, can we create a microgrid? Can we power those with solar and buy more batteries? It's gonna add a significant expense. We'll still need that connection to PG&E, but perhaps we can find a way for some of those city projects. It's just gonna cost more money. It's gonna increase our rates to our customers. So, there may be some solutions for some of the city projects, but I doubt it'll make, sense for some of the residential projects.
Well, maybe PG&E should pay for that.
We're open to alternatives.
Well, I'm very interested in November's conversation. Very.
And I'd be happy to have a council member with me. I think if it's okay on the meeting on Wednesday, Mayor Long, if you wanted to join me or council member, whoever, if the council did want to designate somebody or.
I'll be there. Tell me when.
So that's Senator's meeting, so we need to clear that
we will check to see if we can have a council member.
I'm sure it would be fine, but it's not my,
We,
I requested the meeting, but I want to make sure that we're.
Yeah,
but if it's possible, if we can have a meeting there, I'll extend that out
Okay.
to the mayor or her designee.
all right. Well, on that bright note, let's move on to the city manager's report.
So I just wanted to show the upcoming meeting schedule. So if you can go to the
Oh,
next.
I'm sorry, well,
Oh,
come on up to the podium if you want to ask a question.
Is this a Humboldt County problem strictly, or is it statewide? This PG&E fiasco?
Michelle is saying statewide.
through the chair, yeah. Indications are that this might not just be Humboldt County, but I certainly haven't heard too much of it from other city managers or local government. Do you want to go to the mic, because we can't hear unless you're at the mic?
Allison's gonna try to answer that for you, Walt.
Okay, I'm not done.
Okay,
Wait there, I was going to share, Mayor, that while the issue perhaps is most acute in Humboldt County, there are other areas throughout our service territory that do have capacity constraints that we're also working on.
okay.
Thank you. My only comment, I guess, is I find it hard to believe that a company like PG&E lets this happen. And is there something going on that we really don't know about?
We're gonna find out.
Do we trust PG&E? Yeah, right.
All right. Anyone else have any comments?
Thank
Alright.
you for being here, Allison. I know, I mean, you can hear the frustration and the anger, but it's out of fear, not out of any attack on you.
Okay, back to Merritt, city manager's report.
I just wanted to review the upcoming meeting schedule for the public. Our next regular council meeting will be on October 3rd. We have a Measure E committee meeting on September 20th, and we'll be presenting an update on the expenditures to date, and then we'll give an update to the Measure E committee on some of the projects, like some of the parks projects that we're actually working on, including the bidding of the Roner Park basketball courts, which is currently out to bid, and we have a pre-bid meeting this week, a mandatory pre-bid, and then also the Newburgh Park update. So we're excited to be able to show the Measure E committee meeting some of the progress on projects that will actually result in improvements on the ground. Our next planning commission meeting is on September 27th, and then our Roner Community Recreation and Park District meeting is on October 5th. And then just a few items, of course, as the council might imagine, over the last week, I've spent a lot of time really trying to understand the situation with PG&E and some of the limitations. We've been making some really good progress on the mill site specific plan. Again, it's a little dampered by potential power limitations, but we do have a stakeholder meeting scheduled for tomorrow. And then we're hoping to have a public meeting that we can introduce the specific plan to the public and get comments within about a month. So we're excited. The stakeholder meeting tomorrow will include adjacent property owners and other stakeholders that could be affected by the development of that site. I did see that the Wild Souls Sip of Summer, that's coming up. They're having a hard cider festival in Roner Park this Saturday. Also, and I did see that they have tickets available on their website. There's a bid walk for the Roner Park basketball courts this Wednesday, a mandatory bid walk. So we're, again, really excited to put some two new basketball courts instead of one, some nice servicing, really nice hoops, and we're excited for that project to move forward. And then I wanted to bring a planning priorities update meeting to the city council on October 17th. It's been a little while since we've checked in on some of the planning priorities. I want to revisit those with the council and make sure that we're hitting all the items that the council wants to see move forward. And then we've had a couple of significant code violations with building, of folks building without permits, and so we've had to include our city attorney. So we have one up on Mill Street. Can't remember the address of the other one, but you know, it's unfortunate when it gets to that point, and we've been doing our best to try to let people know of the requirements for permits for grading, foundations, buildings, and so it gets a lot more costly when buildings move forward without the proper permits, and you have to do things in a backwards direction. So I just want to remind everybody out there who is thinking of building, make sure you get your permits, and it's always easier to come do that in a straightforward process instead of after the fact. That's all I have for my report.
All right, thanks, Merritt. Any future agenda items that we don't know about? Okay, city council reports. Mike Johnson.
Okay, a few things. The North Deal meeting, we talked about last chance grade and the ever-present closures, it seems. And if everything goes right, by early '23, we will be able to open, that will be opened up to two-way traffic. So it all depends on, probably weather dependent too, so. But they've got a lot of the work done. Locally, right out here, we will have a median barrier project, changing the way things work out there and adding a cable barrier to the median. And it'll allow for, get rid of some of that grass that has to be mowed and maintained, and put in hardscape and drainage and open things up a little bit. Looking at, as Merritt talked about the basketball courts at the park, that was one of the items that came up as a part of the park report in the historical commission meeting, because we cover every item in there, park related. And it will be fenced actually to keep the ball from going crazy and protect the basketball players from the automobile traffic going through there. Looking at the recent HCOG meeting we had, there was some 2% set aside claims for trail signage for bike and ped, and there was an LTF claim approved. And things like that are the reason we have to have these smaller meetings, because people need to get localities need to get those funds, which has to be passed by the board and a signed resolution and approval. So even though it didn't have a lot of things happening, it was very important to the recipient. And at this time, that's all I have to report. I will be going as the alternate to the RCEA meeting in Mike Losey's absence. So that's one thing coming up Thursday.
All right, thanks, Mike. Jeremy.
So just real quick on the Parks and Rec Commission and Department. The Parks Director marked out about, I would say, 15 to 20 bullet points of items that they worked on over the last couple of months during the busiest time of year for our Parks and Rec Department, with Rodeo and Auto Expo and Hops and Humboldt, et cetera. But it was alarming to see 3 of those items were related to having to clean up vandalism and graffiti. So just ask that any citizens that see any of that type of stuff going on, please report it to Fortuna PD so that we can try and get that remedied. It's sad to see people wanting to deface our public spaces, and just I wish people would take more pride in our town regarding that stuff. So, but otherwise, you know, all the other bullet points were just how hard his staff has been working and so forth, and just really appreciate all their efforts. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we had the privilege of serving 159 kids over the last summer break for kiddie camp and summer fun. So just really appreciate all their hard work, and the volunteers, the leaders in training program that were 13 through 15-year-olds that helped out with the kiddie camp and the summer fun program to, I guess, bolster their resume and help our wonderful city. So appreciate their efforts as well. I wish I knew who they were. I'd name them out by name, but appreciate young people that want to get involved in their community and support the youth. And the only other thing I have is that I think we are now accepting applications for an FBID, what do we call it?
Advisory board.
Advisory board, thank you, yes. So no longer a board member of a corporation that's been dissolved and it's done, but an advisory board, much like our Measure E committee, would be very welcomed. to help support our local businesses. And other than that, that's all I have.
Thanks, Jeremy. Tammy?
Okay, I don't really have anything to report, but I would like to recognize our K-9 officers for a great job that they did. Can you just say something briefly about that for us?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Trump. Yeah, we just recently, over the last few months, the Fortuna Police Department, specifically the POP team and our K-9 unit, have been essentially offering and augmenting services with the Humboldt County Drug Task Force. And, you know, over the last 4 months, there's been a lot of collaborative operations, but earlier, or the end of last week, you know, it was a larger scale investigation that had been going on for almost a year. And those components all came together, and we were able to, you know, once again lend that assistance regionally to an investigation that really encompassed multiple jurisdictions within the Humboldt region. And it was to date, the largest drug seizure in DTF history for Humboldt County. So most of the information that I received was that, you know, the canines were used very effectively, where they split the canine teams into some of the more northern locations and also in southern locations, including here in Fortuna. And, you know, the dogs were right on point. They were going to storage areas and just kind of sitting and telling their handler, you know, there it is. So they were right on, and a couple of the locations were a little more complex than others, but these two dog teams that we have been phenomenal and continue to produce results. And that was really, you know, kind of the overarching goal that I had for this program when we first started out, was this, you know, higher level of enforcement. So I couldn't be prouder of the Drug Task Force. Very honored to have the relationship that we do with the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, and the guys are just doing a great job. Really proud.
Thank you. Yep, that's it.
All right, on Saturday, I had the pleasure of welcoming cross-country teams from all over the state to come to Fortuna and run Roner Park up in the Redwoods and through the rodeo grounds. That was the course that they set. So that was the CR team that kind of organized that and invited people to come to our city. So that was pretty cool, and there were a lot of runners coming from as far as Fresno, Sacramento, Santa Rosa. I'm not sure where some of the other ones came from. And this is supposed to be 3 to 5 times that big in November, on November 5th. So I'm kind of already brainstorming, like, what could we do on November 5th that would be something fun in the city to keep them here a little bit longer, so that they didn't just run their race and go back to their motel or start heading home. So anyway, I sent an email to Renee and Merritt and Sienna, but my outbox didn't go. I don't know why. My internet wasn't working. So anyway, you're going to get an email. My mind is always going. So I think we could come up with something fun. There's a chamber mixer this Wednesday, 5:30 at Unveiled, which is a new business at 1116 Main Street. So I'm hoping that we have a good turnout for that. Our chamber mixers have been a little sparse, so I'm hoping that people are starting to feel like they can get out and about and join us for just kind of a fun hour and a half of networking and, you know, seeing new businesses. So that is really all I have. So with that,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks. Thanks for coming, you guys.